At the end of issue 80 of IDW Sonic the Hedgehog comic, we were teased with a mysterious voice watching over almost all the main characters of the series being displayed through a variety of screens, pulling back to reveal 6 of the 7 Chaos Emeralds lying in, of all things, a coffin. We have had this missing emerald business teased for a while, and currently the comic is focused on the final emerald in 81, with the introduction of a new character, Lunar, but as of the release of this video, we still have no idea who is truly behind the missing gems. So I wanted to do a quick video just speculating on the bedazzled box and who is behind all of this, and what they might be up to, because it's fun, and also because I think we are gonna get another major reveal within the next couple months, probably at the end of issue 83, and I'll get into why I think that is shortly, but if I'm correct, we don't have a lot of time left to speculate before the comic proves how off base I am with any of this theory crafting. So hello there, I'm Nick, and welcome back to Sonic Speed speculating. Sure, why not? I'm not going to go over every single story beat. I will mention some things here and there that I have yet to cover in Sonic Speed reading. This is for folks completely caught up with the comic up to this point, so consider this your one and only spoiler warning. Before we get into it, just want to remind you all, if you're going to be picking up the modern Sonic figgies, you can get them at a slight discount through my link. We've looked at some classic characters, but now they also have Leonardo, Michelangelo, Raphael, and Trunks. The art is unique to this line. It's made by First 4 Figures. They're high quality, they're affordable. It's not even mentioning all the digital bonuses you get with each and every figgy. Please get them through my link. It helps out the channel, gets you a discount, and it helps support a line I really want to succeed. Back to the video. Okay, so let's go over the blatant clues left to us in the teasers so far. We have the coffin-shaped container filled with 6 of the 7 Chaos Emeralds, 1 spot left for the last emerald, and a big gaping hole in the middle of all of them. We have monitors spying on a bunch of people by means of maybe all buzz bombers or other badniks, and we know that whoever has been gathering all the emeralds, they are very good at their job because they stole at least 2 emeralds from 2 very clever characters. As we learned, Rouge had hers stolen from her private quarters, and Tails had his stolen from his workshop, or one of his workshops. And we establish in Imposter Syndrome that Tails now keeps his spaces very well fortified. We also need to take note of the location shown to us at the end of issue 75. Whoever took the emerald before it ended up in a coffin, it first showed up in a weird room where everything is black and looks to be made out of organic looking tendrils. But you go to 80, this presents us with yet another dark area, but it looks like blue highlights shining through a bunch of craggly rock. And again, the monitors and the coffin, which looks radically different from what we saw in 75. Either way, this gives us the impression that whoever is using this stuff isn't using a high-end facility, but rather whatever equipment they could get their hands on. And that coffin, while very intentionally applying some dark intent with the emeralds, doesn't entirely match the vibe of what we saw with that black organic space in 75. Still, these are the 2 scenes dedicated to the mystery of the missing emeralds. We have other clues we can work off from, but these 2 scenes are blatantly meant to tease the audience and ask the sort of questions we are asking now. Because if you simply go by that tease at the end of 75, one could reasonably assume that the culprit behind all of this had something to do with the black arms. At least that's the closest match we could come up with. It doesn't exactly match some things we've seen them build in previous games, but, well, you could see the parallels. But the narrator claiming that they have a plan and using this old tech to spy on characters, that doesn't exactly scream black arms. Now, that's not to say that these 2 scenes are entirely disconnected from each other. Both are dark and creepy. Just going by what we know of previously established villains in this series, the pieces don't quite add up in my mind. At least, again, going by what I'm theorizing, but I'll do my best to tie them together. Now, if I just had 75 to go off of, I would assume this had something to do with the black arms, heck, maybe even potentially Infinite or Mephiles. I'll be real, I don't expect IDW to be the space where either of those characters would be resurrected, but one can hope. I would love to see both of those villains explored a little bit more thoroughly, and I think the comic is a great place to do it. And if I only had issue 80 to go off of, I would assume that the villain behind all this is probably Starline, and honestly, it still could easily be Starline. Heck, I even asked my Patreon supporters what they thought this mystery villain might be, and yeah, almost everybody thinks it's Starline. Though Godzilla, shout out for the off-the-wall theory of saying it's Rouge's mom. dumb. I know that vampires are associated with bats, but weirdly, the Sonic series doesn't really tie Rouge in with vampires whenever they use that imagery. And my new cat is holding me hostage help said it's a new villain that's the physical manifestation of the 43 other jewelry-coated MacGuffins that have been used in years/decades. We will talk about a couple of those today, but yeah, most of us think it's probably Starline, and I honestly think it will be Starline as well. But let me make it clear right now, I do not want it to be Starline. Shout out to Stevie, I'm kind of regurgitating some of her opinions because we're on the same page about this, but while we were talking about it yesterday, we both agree that it's just not been enough time for Starline to come back. I mean, really, when you look at the overall roster of available Sonic villains, that is a very, very limited amount of people. Something we complained about while covering DC X Sonic. Eggman's always at the tippity top, which is fine, but Fang can only exist in the classic timeline. Mimic is now dead, Clutch is incapacitated, and they have not introduced a brand new enemy for these characters since they killed off Starline. So going back to the Platypus to me feels like a bit of a desperate move. He's too popular, nobody else has really matched his gravitas, but that's also because he's one of the only villains that had a chance to really be fleshed out. Mimic got an amazing solo story in the latest annual, but you know, now he's grilled octopus treats. But yeah, stepping outside of the fiction, I get the impression that they kind of regret killing off Starline. I just don't see the same interest in the book like I did while he was around. Clutch was interesting, but again, he's no Starline. And Surge and Kit are interesting. I think there is going to be more to their story, but again, they're not exactly the big evil Eggman level threat that this book sorely needs. That said, I do think these characters might play into the bigger picture of what's happening behind the scenes. And I think that's the case for Lunar as well. Another character that, while probably not the big bad behind everything, probably does play into a bigger plan. They didn't just introduce a new character just to shove them aside a couple issues later. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's take a look at all these little clues and motivations that point to Starline. I know some fans think that the emeralds are going to be used to revive Starline, and shout out to Salem who put forward the idea that Lunar's mask is controlling him, and the same could be said for the Celestial Troop being commanded by a Starline AI to bring the emeralds to one singular space and then use that to power a machine that would in turn bring him back to life. That's a fun idea, and who knows, that could be the case, but I personally feel that this isn't a plan to resurrect Starline. I think he's already back, and I think he's been using not only the Celestial Troop, but also Clutch, and potentially even Surge and Kit, and who knows, maybe even Bell. But the problem is, as we've talked about this whole time, Starline is dead. Bell saw him get crushed at the end of issue 50. Then again, Sonic also saw Surge fall to her death in that same issue, and yet she survived. I think Starline is alive because Surge and Kit have something that they have not talked about in a while. In very simplified terms, they have a healing factor, and that's all thanks to the experimentations and cybernetic implants given to them by Dr. Starline. They have been technically killed many, many times. They just didn't remember most of it thanks to Starline's hypnotic reprogramming to mitigate psychological trauma from the experience. Who's to say Starline would not use those same cybernetic implants on himself once they proved successful on his test subjects? Or heck, maybe he used it on himself before he used them on Surge and Kit. Or, again, applied it to himself after the fact, because Starline is not afraid to get his hands dirty. We saw that with all of the experiments he used to master the warp topaz. He put himself in harm's way just to make sure this stuff worked. And while this is a kid's book, it is important to note we never got Starline's body. It's implying that it was thrown into a furnace since Surge found his glove among the rubble, and Surge assumes he's dead since he wouldn't leave his glove unless something happened, but we did see Eggman remove it and discard it, and not too far away from where he left Starline defeated. So the fact that Surge didn't see a corpse could serve as a clue to his survival. Granted, again, this is a kid's book, so they have their limits, and just because she didn't run into it doesn't mean his remains weren't somewhere in that mess, but the fact that no body turned up is still a point towards him being alive. But why would he fake his death? Well, that part is easy. Surge and Kit had turned on him and want him dead, and more importantly, as Dr. Eggman was kicking his ass, he also bragged about how he was able to kick Starline's ass. He paid attention to the platypus when it looked like he didn't. Followed up with clues behind Starline's many raids on Eggman facilities, he basically knew every trick Starline had up his sleeve and was able to plan countermeasures on top of just knowing how the platypus operates. Starline had studied Eggman for years. He was obsessed with the guy and thought he understood how his idol worked, when in reality, Eggy had figured out Starline incredibly quickly, and while he is a proud man man, Eggy knows when to keep his cards close to his chest, because it makes bragging that much sweeter when you win. Long and short of it, Starline had become predictable, so the only way to get a one-up on Eggman is to have him believe that the platypus was dead. Eggman would move on without giving a second thought, going back to his plans and his obsessive never-ending war with Sonic, while giving Starline a lot more freedom to do what he's always done best, work from the shadows to concoct his schemes. This time he would just have to go further back into the darkness than he ever had before. And heck, they could even now use that wild Frankenstein concept art we saw. Thank you again to Salem for reminding me that existed. As for how Starline would maneuver around now that he's lost everything, well, that's where Clutch comes in. Starline was on location for the first time the heroes met Clutch and learned of his black market dealings. Who's to say Starline had not met up with Clutch before or after that point and helped inspire the move to make Clean Sweep Incorporated a thing? Maybe even the sweepstakes itself. Maybe Starline was manipulating all of that from behind the scenes and somehow had access to Clean Sweep facilities. I mean, the guy is well known for using old Eggman tech, and there's a criminal kingpin who makes a living off of collecting all of that stuff, and now he has a sweepstakes going all around the world. That would make things pretty easy to grab if Starline needed a bunch of different equipment from all over the area, and all while Clutch was taking the heat for him. As for Surge and Kit, well, don't know if they're actually under Starline's control anymore, but they are subtly still doing exactly what they were designed to do. Surge was made to be a replacement hero for Sonic, and Kit was designed to back her up. Surge is actively trying to be a real hero, and Kit is likely willing to set up scenarios to make that happen. Even though they've claimed to move on from Starline, to move on from his control, again, they're doing exactly what they were supposed to do from the very beginning. Now, I'm not exactly sure how that would play into Starline's return. Could just be a point of mockery for Starline, I don't know. But maybe they have hypnotic suggestions that will trigger if something happens, or maybe they unwillingly help collect an emerald or two. Maybe they'll be used as a distraction. Maybe they're actually used as moles, not for Clutch, but for Starline. And maybe they have nothing to do with this. But I do feel like if Starline is still around, he's not done with them just yet. And considering his powers of manipulation, it's not outside of the realm of possibility that Starline planted something in Belle, and who knows, maybe she stole an emerald out of Tails' workshop. She has access to that very spot. Or maybe Motobud, I don't know. I could be overthinking all of this, but these emerald clues have been pulling back from random little spots like the 2022 annual. And Starline has shown to have his fingers in every one of these situations prior to his death. And even if it's not Starline, I feel like the writers are going to be pulling a lot of little surprises that we didn't notice throughout the series for whatever reveal they have in store for us. And all this would work well with the coffin motif. Starline has been critical of the theatrics of Eggman in the past, but let's be real, he is, at his core, a theater kid. He even fondly remembers that chat with Eggman and why the Doctor loves carnivals so much. He makes the world in whatever image he desires. And just look at Starline. He can sneak around all he wants, but he does love a grand reveal. And the narrator at the end of 80 fully intends to let the heroes know that they're up to something. And coming back from the dead is about as grand of a reintroduction as you can do. But if it is Starline behind all of this, why the Chaos Coffin? Why the weird organic room we saw in 75? Is someone being resurrected? Because if it's not Starline, then who? Well, Starline could indeed come back, but he would not come back without a big grand plan. He wouldn't just show up and say, "It's me!" He has amplified himself physically in the past, but that's not enough to take down a team of heroes and Dr. Eggman. He could be using a coffin for some theming nonsense for himself, but he could be using the emeralds to resurrect a different foe. I don't think it's Mimic. He was just blown up, but I can't imagine he'd want the octopus back after their last run-in. But who knows? Let's say that Sega does allow IDW to use Infinite. Maybe Starline is using the emeralds to free Infinite from the Phantom Ruby. That would be one hell of a way to bring in issue 100 of this series. Honestly, I don't know. I really do hope this is a new threat, but I do think Starline is evolved. And whatever the case, I feel like if we could just figure out what that big hole is, we would know the plot. I think the shape is a big clue, but I can't figure out what it is. The Master Emerald and the Black Onyx are too big, and no, I don't think they're just meant to sit in the coffin. This was still made by an artist. I can't imagine they would do something that silly. I imagine the coffin is meant to close and carry around all the emeralds and everything else. And I can't imagine they're going to use this comic to reveal that any of the crap from Sonic Shuffle is canon, or any other random gem from the franchise's history. But all that said, I do think the coffin is indeed implying a resurrection, be it literal or metaphorical. So I do think it has to do with a character from the past, and the list of dead enemies is short, but it does have some dangerous names on it. So at the very least, I do think this has to do with an established dead character. Now, all of that Starline stuff makes sense to me, but again, that doesn't really line up with all that weird, organic, black stuff that we saw at the end of 75. We were teased with a Shadow one-off story where he would be going after an emerald in a mysterious village, and I thought that would have a direct connection to whatever is happening at the end of 75. Looking at the cover, we can see some weird plants that have Shadow's coloring, so maybe it does have to do with the black arms. Maybe they'll be reintroduced into the series like they were in Archie as their own unique threat. I certainly would be okay with that. Or maybe, as Stevie said, this has to do with a brand new Zeddy, which I would hate. I'd hate so much. What I would really like is that all of these disparate clues point to some big bad names actually working together to topple the biggest powers of this world, that being Sonic and Eggman. So like if Starline was in cahoots with the Black Arms and with Infinite and Mephiles, that would be my favorite thing ever. Whatever the case, they're going to have to stop with the Emeralds very soon, because whatever they are up to, they have to do it by the end of issue 83, because we know Sage will be introduced in issue 84. That means Sonic Frontiers happens between those two issues, and that means the Emeralds must be present on the Starfall Islands during that time. So it could be as simple as Starline having backup plans and he used said plans to gather the Emeralds to help resurrect him or get a new body online or whatever, or Starline is still around in physical form and he's using this to bring back an entirely different baddie or power up a brand new terrifying device. Who knows? Maybe all of this will tie into Sonic Frontiers. Maybe all of this is taking place on Starfall Islands. I'm sure the Emeralds will be used to activate something, and then during the events of Sonic Frontiers, the comic villain that's behind all this is going to be concocting some more goofy stuff. Maybe it has to do with the Ancients. I don't know. I'd be down for that too. Whatever this ends up being, the IDW writers are smart enough not to consider a glaring plot hole like the Chaos Emerald locations. I'm sure they have considered Frontiers in all of this. Some of these things make Starline feel like a very predictable choice, but there are enough little things here that make me question whatever theory I have, and I love that. I love that I don't quite know what is going on here, and I love the idea that I could be dead wrong, because whatever happens, I'm genuinely excited to see what this is all about. So there you go, folks. Those are my thoughts, and I would love to know yours in the comments below. And to my Patreon supporters and YouTube members, I am going to be doing the readout of all the names and everything, but I do feel like that might be a little bit of an outdated reward. I do like the idea of doing more speculation videos, and instead of just reading names, we turn that tier into an opinion piece. So instead, we just read the opinions of anybody who wants to involve themselves in whatever we're talking about. That might be a lot of fun. I don't know. I'm spitballing here. We will save that for Discord chats. For now, thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and an extra special thank you to these fine folks here: Cyrus the Skeptic, Josh Strider, Trey Nobles, Tiny Jericho, Ginger Bob, Jack of All Spades, Tristan Trapp, Meekers, Bo Bennings, quote, resident fanboy, Miles the Prower, Sam Webster, Dwight Graham, Fish Flop, Lucas Lipker, The Bad Pal, Jonathan Dobbs, Chad, and Mr. SP, Cecil the Glade, The Dark Neon, Stefan Plakanica, 3 Monic, Graham J. Hall, Lenny X, Wayne is Boss, David 20 Covers, Trash Baphomet, Enerjack 5, Grayson Conager, Xerxes the Renegade Jin, Then 101, Sindarin 7, Twilord, Crimson Rose, Roxas the Cat, Godzilla, Makuta of Salt, Alexander Watson, Neil Gampa, Conan Kudo, the Lex, the most powerful ship in the 2 universes, Kaido Prower, My New Cat is Holding Me Hostage, Help, Penn Adelaide, Daza S, Amu is Not Beating the Tails allegations, Just Another Evil Robot Clone Seeking Revenge, Gob, the RSI, Salem Hollow, Siegfried Wilder, Naburn Yurd, KB, My Great Rolls, Cho Henshin, One More Sonic Robot, Psyche Clips, Milaush, Mika Hedgehog, Dave Slayer 05, Gideon Wells, Devil 115, Nyaza, Isaac Holcroft, and Tyler Fauntleroy. Thank you all so much for your support, and I will catch you all again very soon. Toot toot, Sonic Warriors!